Hello, friends. Hello and welcome. Welcome to yours and mine, Cozy Corner. My name is Amanda, and on this channel, we talk about books, and more books. Friends, I have no idea what's happening, but I have tried to make this video 700 times, and everything keeps going wrong. But you know what? I'm not giving up. We're going to move forward. Let's try this again. So, for the title of the video, this you could here we go. You know what? I'm just going to keep all this in. Forget trying to edit. I'm just going to keep it in. This right here is the October 2025 reading wrap up, okay? Friends, let me just take just a quick moment to just give a little shout out to all of the breast cancer survivors. Don't know if you're aware of it or not, but October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. That is why I am wearing my pink hoodie with my breast cancer symbols on there. And I would like to especially give a shout out to my mother, who is a breast cancer survivor. I also want to give a special shout out to all of the October babies, which include myself. My birthday is tomorrow, actually. I was about to say next week, but no, my birthday is actually tomorrow. And special shout out to my dad, who is no longer with us. He also, as I was saying before, the video cut off for the 800th time. Special shout out to my dad. He's no longer with us, but I want to wish him a happy birthday as well because he's an October baby, and I want to wish my aunt, who's no longer with us, a happy birthday as well. Love you guys. Okay, friends, let's get into the video. I don't know how this is going to go because, like I said, I've been having issue after issue, but let's try to get through this the best we can. I'm not even going to worry about doing too much major editing because I still don't know how to quite do it like I hope to in the future. But I'm trying, guys. I really am. But anywho, let's see what we have. On the October TBR video that I did, I had a total of 15 books. I, of course, did not read 15 books, and I wasn't planning on necessarily reading that many books. I just wanted to make certain that A, I have options, and B, I am one of those people that get most of their books from the public library. So I know that the books may not have been available when I needed them. So that's why I wanted to make the number large. However, I was able to read a total of 11 books. And most of those books did come from off the TBR list. So let's jump into the ones that I actually read from the TBR list. Okay, so the first book that I read, and it's not in any specific order. And of course, you guys know I have my notes as usual. But one of the books that was on my TBR list was that of the Handyman Method. And now I won't go into like the synopsis of the books that was on the October TBR list because that's on that video and it will really make this video extremely long and I don't want to do that. So I'll probably just give you the title of the book, the author, and then what I thought of it. So The Handyman Method by Nick Cutter, who is also known as Craig Davidson, and Andrew F. Sullivan. So I gave this book a 2 out of 5 stars. Now let me say this. I was unsure as to what I wanted to initially rate this book. I was kind of fighting between giving it a 2 and a 3, but based upon my rating system, the main difference between a 2-star book and a 3-star book is, am I willing to read it again? Will I recommend it to someone? Or, is it worthy to put on my shelf back here? And my answer to all three of those questions was no. Now, unfortunately, or maybe not unfortunately, but I had already purchased this book, but I did it because it was on sale. So I got the book at a discounted rate, so I'm not really too upset about that. However, this is why I like to get books from the public library first and read it to see if I actually like the book. So anyway, like I said, I gave it a 2 out of 5 star. I thought the book was okay. It didn't really pique my interest like I thought it would. I didn't care about any of the characters. I couldn't relate to them. It took me probably like 60, I was like 60%, or at least over half, may not have been 60%, but I was well over half the book before I actually had any interest in it. Now, I don't DNF books, but if I did, this probably would have been one of those books that I DNF, but I don't DNF books, and there's nothing wrong with that if you do. But I don't, and I'm glad I didn't because I did actually end up enjoying the twist that was in the book. And plus, this book was like a really short read. It was 292 pages. So I think I read this in a day. It doesn't take that long to get through this book. Now, this book did drive home the point of toxic maximalism. Here we go. I'm not editing. I'm not editing. I'm so sick of recording this. The book did drive home the point of toxic masculinity. Yeah, I am having all kind of issues tonight, and I don't know why. I'm not sleepy. I've eaten. I feel good. I don't know why I'm having all these problems, but let me try this again. This book drives home the point of toxic masculinity. There we go. Um, and it's so funny because that issue is driven home. One of the things that the author has done is he's using like these YouTube videos, and it has all this drama. No. Okay, let me try this again. All right. This book did drive home the point of toxic masculinity. And he did this by YouTube videos. I thought that was a little funny because, in these YouTube streets out here, you really can, get 7,000 videos of that type of negative energy. And he made certain that he, kind of almost browbeat the point home to us in this book. But I also have to mention, I don't remember the name of the book. I think it's like, is it Amityville Horror or Amityville Horror? I don't remember, but I didn't read the book, but I saw the movie, and this book just kind of puts me in the mind of that in The Shining. But anyway, I have never read anything by the co-author of this book, Andrew Sullivan, but I believe I could definitely tell certain parts had to be written by Nick Cutter. And I say that because he's a very, very descriptive writer. I read The Troop by him, which I absolutely love. And I just felt like, okay, I bet that's him, in this particular section of the book. I also know, or willing to bet, that Nick Cutter has some type of major issue with turtles. Okay. If you know, you know. Okay. He has a turtle issue. Okay. Moving on. Now, I still want to read something by Nick Cutter. I definitely wasn't satisfied with this book by giving it a 2 out of 5, but I love The Troop so much. I mean, I really, really enjoyed that book. And I think that I need to give him another shot because maybe this just wasn't the right book for me. Okay, so the next book that I read from off of my October TBR list is 14 Ways to Die by Vincent Ralph. I gave this book a 3 out of 5. I wasn't aware that this was a YA book, but you can figure it out very quickly. Like, chapter one, chapter two, you definitely realize that it's a YA book. And, that in itself isn't a bad thing. It's just, I'm not a huge fan of YA books because a lot of the time it's just a miss for me. But again, it wasn't a horrible book. But this book was told mostly from the point of view of the 17-year-old young lady named Jessica. And basically, she was looking for the Magpie Man, who is a serial killer who killed her mother and had never been found. So she actually used her platform as a YouTube uh, star or whatever to try and find the Magpie Man. Now, I intentionally wanted to listen to this book on audio because I was hoping it was going to give me something extra, kind of like what they do when the book has like a podcast and like oh goodness, I can't think of the name. It's two books that I'm thinking of, and they were like recording a podcast. Listening to it on audio was awesome. This, of course, did not deliver the same thing, but I don't know why I thought it would because watching something on YouTube and listening to something on a podcast is completely different. But nevertheless, like I said, it was still an okay book. It's straightforward, it's very easy to read, and I didn't guess the killer in the book or who the serial killer was, even though I don't really try and guess, like, I don't try and guess the ending. I don't try to necessarily guess, who, done it type of thing. I just usually go with the flow. But in this case, I definitely didn't guess who it was. And okay, guys, the next book from off of the October TBR list is For Better and Worse by Margot Hunt. I did give this book a 4 out of 5 stars. The book started off really strong and it finished the same way. The pacing was great throughout the book. Now, I didn't like I don't want to say I didn't like most of the characters. I didn't like some of the characters. For starters, Will, the husband, he was really passive aggressive, and I'm one of those people. If we have a problem, let's deal with it. Let's talk about it. Um, I can't deal with the little subtle jabs. And he just kind of was like doing that throughout the book, getting on my nerves. However, his points were valid about his wife, but they just should have communicated better. But again, it's the author's book. She can write it however she wants. Also, most of the parents got on my nerves in this book. And I think, like most people, we all have opinions about XYZ. We have opinions of people and how we perceive them to be. So, if a person is accused of something, we generally think XYZ about that. Okay, friends, so I had to stop for about an hour because the video cut off on me, ran out of storage, everything was just going wrong like it has been. But hopefully now we're on the right track. So I think where I stopped at was For Better and Worse, the book by Miss Hunt. And I think what I was saying last was, some of the parents in the book was getting on my nerves. Like most people, we all do have opinions of a person based on who we perceive them to be. So if a person is accused of something, that is generally what we draw on to derive at our opinion. It's rare that I have personally, and it's rare that I've met anyone that can basically reserve their opinion of someone in a type of accusatory situation until all the facts come out. That's just not how I think most people operate. And a good example of this would be that in the Cassie and Diddy case, people had ex opinion of Cassie. And then once they saw the hotel video footage, some of those same people had to come back and then they had a difference of opinion. And I think it's just, human nature that that's what we do. Now, the book was straightforward. It was no, trickery in the book. There were a lot of moral issues that came up in this book. Um, I know that it's very easy to say what you would and wouldn't do in certain situations, but that's easy to say if it's never tested, you know. Um, I think you start to look at things from a different lens when it's you and yours. So, anyway, the book was a very quick and easy read. This is my first book by this author, and I definitely would recommend it to anyone who likes a bit of, mystery, suspense, thriller type of book. Again, I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. Okay, so the next book that I read was not on my October TBR list, and that is The Bewitching by, and I always have to say this, I'm sorry if I mispronounce her name, Sylvia Moreno Garcia. This The first book I ever read by this author was Mexican Gothic. And based on that book being a 5 out of 5 star for me, I thought I would really enjoy more of her books. However, that really hasn't been the case. In the last few months, I have read 4 more of her books, and sadly, none of them have been great. And I've said this in another video. I am trying not to compare books to one another, even though it's written by the same author, because that's really not fair. And not doing that in this case, it's just those other books just, I mean, they were good. They just, in my opinion, just wasn't great. Now, I do have to admit, I did read her books back to back to back. And I did that because I wanted to get her to sign my book at an event that she was coming to. And normally, normally if I read, let's say I want to read, I don't know, 7 books by an author. If I read the first book and it's not really good, then I may read another one by that author. If it's not good, then I try to take a break in between those books because I don't want to um, unfairly judge the books, because sometimes if you read something that's bad by an author, the next one probably could be a little bit better, but in your mind or my mind, I've kind of perceived it as, oh well, it's just like these other books and it wasn't that good. So anyway, I try to take a break in between, and I did not do that with her books. So I don't know, maybe that affected how I felt about the additional book. But again, overall, I gave this book a 4 out of 5. Um, I did enjoy the story, but I didn't relate to her characters. And I hate to say it, to be honest, I didn't really care about the characters in the book. Not as much as you would think that I would. Um, in this particular story. But as always, the writing itself was really good. I think the author is an excellent writer. It's just the plot just didn't do it for me. But I have found that I feel that most of her books are kind of long and they could be a little shorter for me. But anyway, again, I gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars. Okay, so we have Get a Life, Chloe Brown. Now, this book was on my TBR list, my October TBR list. However, the next 2 books, which is Take a Hint, Danica Brown, and Act Your Age, Eva Brown. All 3 of these books are a series, and it is, what is the name of the series? I think it's called the Brown Sisters. Yeah, the Brown Sister series. They're all standalone, so you don't have to read them in order. But when I start a series, I really, and especially if I enjoy it, I really like to, read most of the books that are in that series kind of back to back if they're good. So anyway, the first one I read was Get a Life, Chloe Brown, um, the book number one in the series. I gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars. It was one of those like feel good, fluffy type of books that put a smile on your face, and I knew that it would. Typically speaking, romance novels kind of do that, and this was a contemporary romance, enemies to lover trope happening in this book here. Now, it did have a little bit more spice than I, was expecting. But that's probably my own fault because I was judging the book by the cover, and the cover looked so sweet and innocent, and it ain't that innocent. It was a little spicy. Now, some other things that I really enjoyed about this book was the bond that the sisters shared between themselves and the bond that they shared with their grandmother. Um, I also enjoyed the fact that the young ladies came from a wealthy family, but they didn't have this kind of "I'm better than you" attitude, which let me quit saying which did I did it again. But anyway, I enjoyed that part very much. And Chloe, she was the main character, and she had, like most of us, many fears about life and, doubts within ourselves. However, she pushed past all of that and was rewarded for it. So really enjoyed that. Now, book 2 and 3, as I mentioned, is part of the series, but it was not on my October TBR list. But I won't go into a long synopsis about the two. But I will say that Take a Hint, Danica Brown, that one had the fake dating trope, and then Friends to Lover trope in there, and then Actor Age Eva Brown was enemies to lover trope and forced proximity. I gave both of these books a 5 out of 5 stars. I mean, I really have fallen in love with the Brown sisters. I mean, they're fun, they're smart, really down to earth. I was really sad that the series ended and that I only got, 3. But out of all 3 books, I would have to say that my favorite is book number 2. However, you can't go wrong with reading any of them. And again, they're all standalone, so you don't have to read them in any specific order. Um, and I will say that I think book 2 and 3 probably is a little bit more spicier than the first book, but none of them are overly spicy. Like they were tolerable for me, and I'm a person that generally don't read heavy spiced books, but these were tolerable. I have not read anything. These were the first book that I read by the author, but I do look forward to looking through like her catalog to see if she has any more books like this because these were just wonderful reads. Okay, guys, the next book that was on the TBR list is Hold My Girl by Charlene Carr. Now, when I was going on that video, when I was going over the synopsis, I said that I felt like this book was going to put me in a chokehold, and I just felt like it was going to be a 5 out of 5. And it turned out to be a 5 out of 5. Now, it didn't put me in a chokehold, but it really had me like back and forth. And let me just, stick to my notes so I don't go, too far off with this one. But definitely a 5 out of 5 book. I would recommend this to any and everyone. I don't care what type of books you read. This one, I would. It was just wonderfully done. I don't think it could have been done any better. It was just absolutely wonderful. Um, so when I went into the book, I was thinking, okay, this is an impossible situation. Like, I personally wouldn't want to have to be the person who would make the decision. Um, because it was just an impossible situation. But I went in, and as you know, the first few chapters, I'm like, okay, I'm kind of with this, group here. And then halfway through, I'm like, okay, well, no, I kind of understand this person. So I think I'm kind of here. And then it's, oh, no, I think that. So, I mean, I was just all over the place going back and forth because it's really definitely not a black white situation. There's a gray area, but then within that gray area, it's like gradients of it. This is just so good. Like I can't do this justice by speaking on this book. Um, I really can't wait to read something else from this author. Like I said, 5 out of 5, definitely bookshelf worthy, and I have ordered this book. Okay, almost done. Hang in there with me, guys. So, the next to the last book that I read that came off of my TBR list is The Kill List by Nadine Matheson. This book is book number 3 in the Angelica Henley series. However, they can be read as a standalone. I kind of wish I, though, would have read the first book first, just because that's just me. I kind of like to read them in order. However, these are standalones. You don't have to read them in order. And from my understanding, I'm not like missing anything by having not read the books in order. But overall, I gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars. Um, this book, actually, I don't know how many books is going to be in the series, but there is a 4th book that is coming out. It is expected to be released on March the 10th of next year. So I definitely plan to go back to read the first 2 books, and I might kind of wait a little while so that once I read those 2 books, then maybe I can go into reading the 4th one as well. Now, I would recommend this book to anyone that enjoys like mystery, crime, cat and mouse situation. Like I said, it's a really good book. Now, the book starts off hot. I mean, it starts off hot. Detective Sergeant Ron was doing the most in the book. And like, I don't know, 14, 15, I don't know, percent into the book, very early on in the book, we meet the killer. Now, we don't know the killer's name or identity, but we do know that that person is the killer. And it's just, it's just kind of cool to know that, okay, we know who this person is. And you have to read it. I'm trying my best not to say anything that would spoil the book, but you learn who that person is early on. Now, the only drawback, and this is the only drawback that I have for this book, is that when it started off, it had like a gazillion characters that were introduced. And it was a little bit overwhelming because, or at least for me, I'm like, okay, do I need to know who this person is? Or is this just, drop another name? They're not really that significant. I don't know. So I take notes, surprise, surprise. I take notes, and I'm not even going to show you this. But anyway, I take notes, and I try to write down like who the people are, and come to find out, I mean, they were important, but it wasn't a big deal if you didn't like remember each person. But what it did do was it kind of like spiked my interest. Like, oh, I would love to have just a book that, discusses these 2 characters together and these 2 characters together, like just to learn more about them. But really, that was the only drawback that um, I will say, about this book. Um, the book had me taking tons and tons of notes. And I mean, I just loved every second of it. I really hate that I didn't know about this author earlier, but now I do. So I will be checking out her books. Okay, so I forgot about one book. I said I read 11, and technically, about time I post this video, I will have read 11 books. I'm currently reading The Lost God by Brahm. This is a reread for me. And at this point, I only have like, I say maybe like 20% of the book left to read. So I'm definitely including that in my October wrap up because, like I said, I will be finished with it before the end of October. Um, like I said, it's a reread for me. It's still a 5 out of 5 stars. I didn't think it would be anything different. This is one of those books that I probably will reread every few years just because I enjoy it so much. So just wanted to make certain that I mentioned that one. Okay, now the last book that was on my TBR list. Now, let me just say this right quick. These little, note sheets that I have, I journal. So I have a book journal and I do all these little, different designs in there. And um, these pages, when I cut them out, are going to go inside my journal. So I have to make notes to um, like remember what the book is about as well as my opinion of it. But I say that to say I really just need to read straight from this sheet. So the book is Kill for Me, Kill for You by Steve Kavanaugh. Now, I have never heard of him prior to reading this book. And if you watch my October TBR video, when I was discussing the synopsis of this book, I was like, yeah, you know, kind of had that like, I'm gonna read it, but wasn't really thinking much of it. Let me apologize, okay? Let me apologize because when I say this book is probably going to be one of my forever books. I mean, I need to put some respect on Mr. Kavanaugh's name because hands down, this is one of the best psychological thriller books I have ever read in my life. Like, it was absolutely wonderful. Let me say this part. When I was reading the synopsis, one of the books that, and I don't know who wrote that in the blurb, but one of the blurbs, one of the authors said, like if you're a fan of The Silent Patient, you will enjoy this book. And even though I like The Silent Patient, to me, it wasn't just like, oh, the best book that I ever read. So I was like, again, kind of was like, I think this is going to be okay. No, 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 no. I think that Lee Chow said it best, and he wrote a blurb on this book, and he said, Mr. Kavanaugh, well, he didn't say Mr. Kavanaugh, but Mr. Kavanaugh is the real deal, and that this book will keep you breathless until the final page. The man wasn't lying. I was so wrapped up in this book, I could barely function. It's like, oh my gosh, I got stuff to do, but I didn't want to do it. All I wanted to do was to read this book. And I started it during the middle of the week. So, like on the weekends, I have all the time in the world to just sit there and read the book. But during the week, you're working. It's a little difficult, but I feel like I'm rambling. I don't care. This book was just wonderful. It was beyond good. It was so good that, and I wrote this on here, I wish I could read it for the first time every time. Okay. Not only could I not see anything coming, I didn't care to figure it out. And I couldn't figure it out even if I wanted to, because I mean, he just had me hooked the entire time. I was immersed in this book. To me, this is why I read books. Like, okay. Again, I just couldn't put this book down. This is one of those books that if you are a thriller, person, I don't understand if you don't like this book. And I mean, I know we all, have our opinions of books, but I don't know what else you could possibly want. Like, to me, this book was so good. Matter of fact, if you are a thriller person, like this is your, type of book, and you've read this book and you don't feel that it is a 5-star read, um, please tell me what it is that the author could have done differently. What is it that could have drawn you in to give it a 5-star? And let me know what you rated the book as well. Now, again, I think this book is absolutely perfection. This was my first book that I read by this author. I can't wait to read something else by him. And to me, because I think this book is absolutely perfection, whatever I read of his next, even if it doesn't match up, like if it's not even half as good as this book, it's still going to be okay because there's no way that you could write a book, in my opinion, this good and write other books that are just like trash. You just can't. They may turn out not to be, the 5 out of 5, but I know it's still going to be good. This man is just, I don't know what to say. I just love this book. Like I said, this will forever be one of my favorite books. I can't see that changing. And I just wish I could read it for the first time every time. Oh my goodness. We made it to the end of the video. So, thank you guys. I know this video is all over the place. I'm truly not going to do too much editing to it because I mean this is just real life. It happens. I'm not a professional. I'm just a regular blow Joe country girl that's just talking to her friends about books. So I'm going to leave that stuff in there. But I appreciate you guys sticking around with me. If you would, you know what to do. Please like, share, and subscribe. And I will catch you guys next time. Love you guys. Bye.